I am stunned by the fact that most people build financial arbitrage machines, not companies. Just spending all their fucking time thinking about how to do things to make the next fundraising event happen so they can stay alive. I think startups in today's environment, 10 years of good times since the bad era of the economy, are way too fucking fancy. Like, why can't you have a service business? Like, why couldn't you hire 2 people instead of 2 less developers, which will take you 9 months longer to achieve your tech goals, but you could hire 2 people who could do client work or consulting for companies so you had cash coming in. There's a binary decision in advanced technology companies that are startups that the way it's done is you raise capital, you burn through it, you raise capital, you burn through it, and you have your event, right? You either become a profitable company, you sell. The fact that there's no practical parallel of, well, what else could we be doing? Like, what if there was no venture money? Like, what do you think happens when the markets collapse? These companies figure it out. When you're as lucky, you guys aren't mobile or social companies. You're playing in a new field. Nobody knows anything about it, which means that there's an enormous appetite from leaders to pay for a knowledge transfer. And so my biggest thing is, first of all, forget about the people you surround yourself, you guys. Everything's your fault. You're the founders. You need to be in charge of having a real structured strategy to how to stay alive. And everybody's rushing to make the product or do this thing. And to me, it's like, give up 6 months on that to do something that's making you practical dollars along the way. It's just something nobody ever wants to talk about because everyone's so fucking fancy, Bri. You know, everyone's fancy. Like, and I just think that's stupid. I also think it's compoundly stupid after 9 years of good economy. You know, like, I mean, the only thing that I think makes me not think that the markets would collapse in the next 3 years during this era is that I think we have a president who would do anything to manipulate the economy not to fall during his time. Other than that, I mean, this is a long run of prosperity. And nobody's running businesses like they're businesses because there's artificial dollars in the system. There's incubators, there's all this shit. So I would think about how to not waste money and how to make money along the way while achieving your business goals. And I know that that's just not the kind of talk that's going on in our world. Yes, sir. What's your name?
It's Alex.
Alex.
From Sensible Object. Do you see, so speakers, smart speakers, going in the homes real quick, but voices across a bunch of other platforms, you know, you can get it through your TV.
Yes, I agree.
Do you have a view on whether the penetration of smart speakers is going to peter out and it's going to get subsumed into something else? Like, where do you see voice fitting into our
from a speaker standpoint? Like, so for example, do you know who I think should be making the single biggest bet in this space? The Toll Brothers construction company. I mean, every home built going forward should have an upcharge, huge profit margin for them, where they're like, you don't need those speakers, it's just in, right? Security systems, right? The people that secure your homes, things of that nature. So yeah, I'm sure I haven't done the homework on this. I'm sure there's clearly an intriguing window for the hardware in that form, but I think that's commoditized, and there's a lot of things that can deliver that, and I do think that that's dangerous, other than if you have great tech that can then be put into a wall or bottled water or what have you. But like, as a consumer-facing speaker play, I think there'll be a window, but over time that gets commoditized. So I don't love when you have to nail not only all the things we just talked about, but then the macro consumer behavior and moment as well. That adds another layer of timing, which usually forces you to be less patient, which is what I was talking about, right, Brian? Like, now you're forcing it because you know, shit, we've got 24 months before, right? So yeah, I'm far more bullish on the people who have got the tech or the infrastructure around what's making it sound great, more so than the physical product. You know, I think that just plays out, you know, right? I mean, Amazon and everybody else should be making a smart refrigerator that has speakers built into it so that not only is it in fully penetrating your kitchen, but it's reordering every product for you once you've used up a percentage of that product inside the refrigerator.
So you mentioned at the start of these spaces, there's an opportunity for startups like the ones we have here to work with a knowledge transfer to some of those larger organizations.
Yeah.
But there's also another thing which some of these companies are starting to experience too, is that these larger companies who don't understand the space are thinking, are you acquisition targets? And how would you kind of advise them to think about sticking it out the long run? Do you take a quick win? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think the cool answer to that question is that's very specific to you, right? There's no right answer to that. What I love, as you were talking, like, fuck, that I should have brought up that point too, because that doubles up the reason why to be practical and have a parallel service business that's bringing you revenue in, because it's probably the gateway to a more significant acquisition opportunity, because they get to lease before they buy and understand that you're smart and you get it. And we've seen through the history, if you're here to make that financial nut, the amount of acqui-hires, we've seen some we saw in social ungodly exits where the guy or the gal was getting bought. I think that actually doubles up why I think you should go in, but like it's up to you. If Coca-Cola, you're doing a project for them in parallel while you build your thing, and they want to offer you $7 million, I mean, that's just, or 70 or 7 billion. I mean, I think at 7 billion, a lot more people here go for it. I think the punchline there being is everybody here has their own circumstances. For me, at a long time ago, far less money than I have now, that was the money I wanted to make. Then it became about legacy and playing the game and a lot of different things, right? Some people want to amass dollars their whole life. Some people don't like the idea of earning out for 3 years because they think, I would be very empathetic if I became best friends with everybody here and a year from now everybody gets an offer. I could really see that tough decision of like, fuck, this is life-changing money and this is this would be helpful for me, but I'm locked up for 3 years and fuck, these next 3 years in this space, they're so fruitful. So I don't think there's a one size fits all, and some people have student loans and sick parents and you get into a million variables. They both work. The amount of people that said no in the Web 1.0, Web 2.0, and social bubble and ended up with dick shit is a lot. The amount of people that said yes, Instagram and others, could have gotten a lot more. Bebo's super happy they sold for $850 million to AOL. I think there's a lot of ways that goes. I think that's where you go, I get really worried that mentorship's so important, but it can be substantially overrated because mentors tend to love to give the advice that they lived through, or they don't contextualize all these human variables that I just brought up. So the answer would be all of them. However, I'm a big fan of options. So I sure love the idea of you making money along the way that also led to an M&A opportunity. It's a lot more fun to have options than not.
Well, I'll take this one then.
Okay.
Keep going. So, a lot of what you've done over the past decade or so with social, recognizing how this was going to change customer service, customer experience, and require more authenticity. Rather than necessarily just talking about it with voice, I'm just curious how you kind of came to a lot of those conclusions and navigated those and built your businesses around that.
It's funny. I think we all, right? Like your experiences lead to everything. I grew up in a retail liquor store, and I would tell you that voice, I can already make the pieces all the way backwards to it. Like customers don't like waiting in line. Nobody likes friction. And retail's a real good place because it's one thing if you're a UI, UX data nerd and you're just looking at it. It's a whole nother thing when you see the person's venom in their eyes. And it got ingrained in me so early on. And I'm a depth versus width guy. Even though I love width and it's why I do so much of my shtick, it's still the depth. It's always the depth. So, what I knew about social was what I knew about email. It's just experience, pattern recognition. Early email, I bought a ad on luxury.com's email newsletter. They had 1 million emails newsletter. And they proved that, this is what's fun about being old. This stuff used to be wild. Like, you have 1 million email? It was it was crazy. I paid a fortune. We're such a small company. I think it was $5,000 or $10,000, which was a lot. And I called my high school friends to come into the store because they were sending the email, on their email, the banner ad, which, you know, at that point, there was some banner stuff I was running on the web in 96 that was getting 14% click-through. Not 0.0, you know, like just, it was a different world, as it always will. As will the next 3 years of consumer voice be compared to 10 years from now. You guys are all gonna convert in a way that people be like, one day, like, when I had 5,000 Twitter followers, I'd get more retweets than when I had 1 million. It's just how it works a lot, right? Anyway, nonetheless, I had like hired 4 extra people, brought like 7 friends. I thought we'd be packing and shipping all day. We were such a small shop. And 12 o'clock is when it was gonna go out, and it's 12:13, and we have like 1 order. And I'm like devastated and trying to figure out, and then I'll never forget this moment. I'm like, oh, I'm such an idiot. It's 9 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast. It's, you know, not 12, it's, you know, so I feel better for about 45 minutes until I get an email from this guy who sold me the ad. He's like, how's it going? Because they did send it at 9 a.m., 12 my time, and I'm like, you know when you have those, you know when blood rushes to your head and you can almost faint? You know, like, I was like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. It was when I realized, open rates and, you know, I didn't call it that, but open rates and click-through ratios were gonna matter too, not just how many you had. And basically since then, and why I did so well in social was that was my second rodeo. I know that's when people got to know me, but that was my second rodeo. I learned a lot about shopping cart optimization and email, and so I think about the depth, not just the width. You know, you're not gonna care how many people have it, you're gonna care how many people do the right thing with it, and so I think a lot about that stuff. So that's how I think about, why do I care about customer service? Because it's depth. Basically, I think about things very simply. I'm a really great marketer, that's what I'll be known for, but if your product blows, all my great marketing is gonna do is expose it quicker. The product is the product, it matters, you know? And we do all these things around it to make it seem like it doesn't, but it does. And to me, depth in customer service, you can have 10,000 followers and, right?
Yep.
Nobody's paying their mortgage on likes. So you've got to figure out what metrics matter, right? Watch what happens in the podcast space once all the data comes out now, right? Doesn't matter, you know, cool, you got in early and got a lot of subscriptions and they haven't unsubscribed, right?
Yep.
So a lot of people are about to be exposed.
As you think about like how you built up your career, which it sounds like, I mean, it was pattern matching. Like you saw this work there, and again, now you reached a point where you're not just doing that for your own career, you're investing across different companies. And if you could talk a bit about, you know, how you kind of evaluate companies, what you've learned now as an investor, where you've been writing.
The first 3 things I put my money into were Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. That's when I was not an investor. So I don't like talking about myself as an investor because I got progressively stupider, which is why I gave you the advice that I gave you. What I've learned in the last 6 years is, first of all, it's about the jockey, not the horse. I'm far more interested about knowing you and what you're about and how you roll, because you got to pivot and change, and you know this. Like, listen, if your idea is stupid, like, right? If your horse is like, you know, a horse on like those machines you put the quarter in, and you got to actually run a race, you're gonna lose. Like, you know, but it's stunning how important the CEO is, how important she and he is. It's stunning. For me 6-7 years later, especially in this time, because you're gonna have to change. Like this, you know what's funny about new spaces like this? Some of the biggest wins are the ones that go from B2B to B2C and vice versa. Like literally just change your fucking business. And you as a CEO have to be the kind of person that can react to reality versus you're obsessed with the romance of your vision. So I'm spending a lot of time trying to get to know the person. Phil Toronto here, who started as my assistant, does a lot of investing and helped me run my last fund. We're not even invested. We haven't even invested in the last year. Poor Phil is like, wants to punch me in the face. Like, you know, like because we think things are overinflated. Everybody's a fucking entrepreneur. Everything's an idea. I mean, guys, let me just break it down for you. And I know you're in it and I'm in it too. I like if you knew nothing, it is kind of interesting that an idea is worth $4 to $5 million. That is what we're talking about. So it's very interesting times. And I think, I'm glad Rai's question, we started with that. What I'm looking for is, especially because I want to invest in this space, who can get there in 36 months? Who can survive?